Welcome to the Lifestyle First podcast, discussing lifestyle medicine and making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. One question, 2 research reviews, and 3 actionable health tips, all centered around the Lifestyle First method, your blueprint for the 10 key routes of optimal health and happiness. And now your host, lifestyle medicine physician and coach, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hello and welcome to Series 6, Episode 6 of the Lifestyle First podcast. And the theme that we're focusing on today is T for time out. And the one question that we're asking is, how can you improve your daily life with mindful meditation? And to answer that, I would like to introduce you to my guest today, who is Jessica Kotik. Jessica is TEDx speaker, with TEDxKentState, with her talk, Improving Your Daily Life with Mindful Meditation. And just some background on Jessica. She's a psychology doctoral student at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville in the USA. And she began researching mindfulness as an undergraduate when she was at Kent State University in Kent, Ohio in the USA. And she's currently researching academic and behavioral interventions to help students be successful in school settings. So Jessica, a very, very warm welcome to you. I'm so delighted to be speaking to you about this topic today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. So let's dive in then about mindfulness. There are so many preconceptions, aren't there? The word itself evokes so many different impressions and images. I wonder if maybe you can tell us what mindfulness is, but also what it is not, because I think both of those are really important.
Yeah, that is for sure. So what mindfulness is, let's start with what it is first, because once you understand what it is, it's a lot easier to understand what it is not. And so mindfulness, the core tenets are about being in the present moment, right? Not worrying about things that have happened in the past or what's going to happen in the future, but really just paying attention to where you and your body are in the present moment, in the current space that you're in. And there's 2 components really to that. There's like the mind, but there's also the body. And so whenever we think of the mind, we want our mind and our thoughts to stay with us in the present, be non-judgmental, right? So if you kind of think about the flow of consciousness, it's kind of like a river, right? And things are coming in and leaving, and then a new thought's coming in that might be totally unrelated to the other thought. And whenever you're being mindful, we're welcoming those thoughts, but we're also not judging them or ruminating on them if they are bad thoughts by chance. And we're just kind of letting them continue to flow through our mind. The best analogy I've heard is imagining that like each thought is a leaf flowing down a stream, and you see the leaf and then it's gone, right? You're not going to follow that leaf or run along the stream to keep track of it. And in terms of the body, your body, you want to think about where you are in the present moment. So for instance, like I'm currently sitting down, and to be mindful of my body and the sensations that I am feeling, I might think like, oh, like I'm sitting on a cushion on my chair, but like my back is up against like the wooden back of my chair, right? And that's a little bit harder. I might acknowledge the pressure that I'm feeling or the tension that I'm feeling in my muscles. And the goal of mindfulness is to really relax your body. So accepting that maybe I'm a little tense, but doing what I can to just relax. And so that's really what mindfulness is. Just being in the moment, accepting the moment for what it is, and continuing to stay in the moment.
That's a really lovely way that you put all of that. Thank you, Jessica, and particularly that analogy about the leaves on a stream or in the river. I particularly like that analogy because it really does help with that sense of just movement and thought, and allowing thought to be mobile as well, whilst you're still able to do what it is that you need to do. But it's interesting, isn't it? I like that you talked about the mind and the body, because I was again looking at some research, and we actually tend to be able to, we've got this ability to think about one thing but actually do something else totally unrelated. And so we don't actually focus on the task that we're actually executing, but we let our minds wander. That's sort of our default state. And as I was saying, there's a bit of research that I was looking at, it found that we spend 47% of our waking hours thinking about something other than what we're doing. Now, that is not mindfulness at all, is it?
No, it's not. And I'm actually not surprised by that statistic, though. I mean, I think that as people, we are very much goal oriented and thinking about the next thing that we have to do. And so, yeah, whenever we're thinking about what we need to be doing, we're not thinking about what's happening in the moment, and we're missing those things. And so, mindfulness is a way to help you slow down, in the moment and focusing on the here and now rather than the future, because the future is going to come whether you're ready or not. But the here and now, it's always going to be here, and we need to be more present in the here and now. If that makes sense.
It certainly does. But I remember when I sort of first discovered or fell upon mindfulness, my big question was actually, so what? What's the big deal about being here right now? And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about the benefits then. What is the importance of being here and being in the here and now? Why are we attaching some importance to it?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of physical and health benefits to mindfulness. The main one is that mindfulness can help relieve stress. And I know, speaking in the context of the here and now, I mean, we are currently living through a pandemic, and research is showing us that people are way more stressed out and feeling a lot more anxiety compared to, this time 2 years ago. And that's not good on our bodies, because whenever we are stressed, those cortisol levels are rising, and whenever we have a lot of cortisol in our body, that's not good. It really wears on us, and it can make us feel as if we are aging quicker, right, on the inside of our bodies. And so, our heart is going to beat faster, our blood pressure is going to be higher. And so we need to do what we can to ensure that wear and tear is not occurring. And so stress relief is the big one. And then falling underneath of that is things like lowering heart disease, or lowering the instances of heart disease, lowering blood pressure, reducing chronic pain. It helps improve sleep, which I know there was a study that was recently done in the United States that said Americans are not getting the sleep that we should be getting currently. And I'm sure that is worldwide, but I want to speak within the scope of the study. And so, being able to get those 8 hours for adults, or those 10 hours that's recommended for children. And then we have some gastrointestinal, so stomach aches or nausea. Whenever we practice mindfulness, those symptoms seem to go away. And it makes sense, because sometimes those are somatic symptoms related to the stress and anxiety. So I feel like a lot of the benefits kind of tie back to those feelings of stress and anxiety. And then, whenever those feelings are relieved, those somatic symptoms that typically accompany it are also relieved as well. And then we see those long-term benefits, like the lower blood pressure, the lower instances of heart disease, and things of that nature.
I think you're right. There's this sort of emotional regulation benefit of mindfulness. And then when you step into the world of stress, and we know that there's so much physical fallout from stress, that then naturally mindfulness itself then helps with the fallout of stress, which is often some of those physical effects that you've really well described. And in fact, we do appreciate that there are now health benefits of mindfulness. And in fact, they're so much more well known. It was back in October 2015, I think, when the UK government actually published recommendations in this report, which was called the Mindfulness Initiative, Mindful Nation UK. And in that, they called for mindfulness to be incorporated across so many systems, the healthcare system, the education system, workplace, and certainly the legal system as well, kind of very stress evoking systems that we work in and live in. Why do you think this isn't really taking off as much as it should? Because I'm certainly seeing mindfulness starting to become incorporated into the workplace, but the pace of that seems pretty slow to me. What do you think that's all about?
So I think part of it ties back to the misconceptions of mindfulness. And so I know we didn't get quite to hit on those quite yet. And so I want to briefly just mention, I think the biggest barrier is that mindfulness is rooted in Buddhism. And so a lot of people perceive it as more of like a religious activity. And I'm not quite sure why. And I know, speaking from my own experience, whenever I was doing mindfulness with children, a lot of the families had said, we're not interested in having our child participate because, we're not Buddhists, we don't practice Buddhism. And so we're not interested in practicing mindfulness. And, and we did let them know, yes, mindfulness has roots in Buddhism, but it's not a religious practice in itself. I also think that there is just a lot of skepticism. The research community with mindfulness, at least whenever I was really involved in it, is pretty small. And so, without the research being funded and being really put out there, because we do know that there's a huge discrepancy between researchers and then policymakers or practitioners, then it's not gaining the momentum that it needs to be put into practice. And so I think that bringing it to practitioners and public policymakers, bringing it to them and, having them really understand what it is could be like a really good first step in having it gain momentum and be put into practice more often. But I love that the UK, has that initiative, because we don't have anything like that here in the US. I do know of a couple of schools who did consult with my research group, but they were local schools because they wanted to do like some stress relief activities for their district. But that was really it. I incorporate mindfulness into my classroom because I understand it. I've researched it. I believe in it. But I've had professors or, other researchers say, well, I don't believe in that. And that's totally fine. You don't have to believe in everything. But I am a believer, based off my own research and the research of others that I've read, that maybe not mindfulness alone, but mindfulness is a good first step in helping reduce the stress and anxiety of so many individuals.
And again, I think you're absolutely right. It is taking those steps that then create that ripple effect to do more. And mindfulness certainly sort of opens the doors for that, doesn't it? Sure. So we've talked about what mindfulness is. Just another question alongside that then as well is the muddle between mindfulness and meditation. Yes. Are they the same thing?
I'm going to say yes and no. I know that's not the best answer. I think that it depends on the type of meditation, right? And I am very unfamiliar with meditating techniques. But I do believe that mindfulness is incorporated into some meditation techniques. I mean, we call it mindfulness meditation, but there's a reason why we put mindfulness in front of the word meditation, and we don't just call it meditation. So I do think that mindfulness is a component or one piece of a larger, meditation practice, but it's not completely overlapping, because there's different ways that you can meditate. Whereas mindfulness, mindfulness is very accessible, but it is in its own realm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I completely understand what you're saying, or certainly trying.
Yes.
And there's another important thing I think worth picking up on then from what you've said is about perhaps the concept of time as the barrier, because again, when you think about meditation, you associate it with needing quite a lot of time to incorporate into your day, and those images of needing several hours in the day, or it's a real discipline and a long-term practice. Whereas mindfulness, the time barrier, we can throw that away, can't we? Because time is not a barrier to mindfulness at all. And I'd love you to talk about perhaps sort of mindfulness in the moment, or even to sort of talk about short practices of mindfulness. How do we incorporate those into our day-to-day and still gain those same benefits?
Absolutely. Yes. So I think you are so right. Mindfulness can be done in just a few minutes, but I know there are individuals who take a half an hour to an hour out of their day to practice mindfulness. For individuals who are not familiar with the practice or who want to just get started, the recommended time is about 5 to 10 minutes a day. I know individuals who I've worked with who start with just like 30 seconds to 3 minutes, because it really is a practice that you have to get down. If you just throw yourself into a 30-minute chunk of time and say, I'm going to be mindful this whole 30 minutes, it's going to be really hard. And so I think that mindfulness is very accessible in that you can take the time that you have. You don't need to carve out such a large chunk of time out of your day because we're all so busy now. And really just practice mindfulness with the time that you have. And so practicing those core components of just being in the moment, letting your thoughts pass through your mind, feeling your body in relation to your environment, and just focusing on, those bodily sensations are really just what you're going to want to practice for 30 seconds to 3 minutes to 5 minutes, whenever you're first starting out. Some people have a higher tolerance than others. Sometimes it has to do with age too. And that's another thing that isn't a barrier with mindfulness. I had kids as young as first grade doing mindfulness in my research, and we did find that they did reap the same benefits as the fifth graders. But we used an adapted mindfulness lesson plan for them. And there's a really great book out there, and there's tons of great books out there focused for children so that they can practice mindfulness, and it's delivered to them in a kid-friendly way.
Yeah, and that's lovely to be able to build those habits from a young age, and you carry those forward into adulthood as well then, don't you, as well. But I love thinking of mindfulness very simply as awareness. And,
Yes.
Those are interchangeable words as well. And awareness just means being aware, noticing, and actually creates an element of fun, doesn't it, as well? Because if you just, the day-to-day things that we do, the next time you're out for a walk, just be really aware of what your senses are picking up, as you say, what that sun on your back feels like, the wind in your hair, your heel strike on the floor, all these things that we do day to day. The next time you're eating, think about what is that sensory experience of your connection with food like, and that's just being mindful in the moment. And it is actually fun. It's quite an enjoyable, exciting, sort of curiosity evoking experience as well. And these are things that, exactly as you said, you can do in the moment for as long as you want to. But I wonder, maybe then, as you say, for people who are unfamiliar with mindfulness, if you could perhaps just kick us off with a 30-second or 3-minute mindfulness practice. Are you able to talk us through something?
Yeah, I would love to do that. So let me think about the best way, I think, to do this. So I'm going to keep my eyes open and just kind of focus on a focal point in my home while I kind of deliver it, because it's hard for me to close my eyes and deliver mindfulness. But I encourage any of the listeners out there, to find somewhere comfortable before we get started. So maybe start doing that now while I'm kind of giving a little bit of an overview and directions. So, finding somewhere comfortable, that can be sitting up or laying down. If you are going to sit up, I have found that it works best if both feet are on the floor, because that really helps ground your body. So like I'm sitting in a rather high chair right now, it would not be a good location because my legs are just dangling. And I don't quite feel as grounded. And then closing your eyes if you're comfortable, but you don't have to. I know a lot of my students like to close their eyes because sometimes whenever you close your eyes, it really helps block those visual distractions that you can see in your room. But it also kind of, we don't do very much with our eyes closed. So it kind of gives you that space and that time that you need to participate in the activity. And then what I'll be walking us all through today is a full body scan. It's not going to be as in depth as what body scans typically are. They're typically about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on what you choose to do. But I'm just going to kind of break the body into 4 sections and walk through what that would look like with you all. So if everyone is ready, you can go ahead and place both hands on your stomach and just feel your body moving with your breath. So typically when we breathe in, we feel our stomach rising, and then we feel it falling. Notice your shoulders. Are they rising as well? Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. And then think about the sensation of your breath going through your nostrils or your mouth. And then as you exhale, feel the breath leave your body. And so we are going to start with our feet. So what I want you to do is feel your feet, feel them against the ground or whatever surface they are on, and feel the sensation. Are your feet pressed really hard against the floor? Are they just touching? Are your feet really warm or really cold? And then just feel all of that tension leave through your feet as you breathe in and out. Really relax that part of your body. And then I want you to feel your legs. What kind of pressure are you feeling right now? Or are you feeling no pressure at all? As you breathe out, feel all of that tension or pressure or negative energy just leave your body. And now your bottom half should be very relaxed. And we're going to go ahead and move up into our torso. We're going to bring our focus back to our breathing. So feel your stomach rise as you breathe in and fall as you breathe out. Notice any sensations in that area. And as you breathe out, feel that area becoming lighter. And finally, let's bring our focus up to our shoulders, neck, face area. I want you to first focus on the shoulders. Is there any stress in your shoulders? If there is, the next time you breathe out, I want you to imagine that stress melting away, flowing out of your body. And I want you to repeat this process with your neck. Notice any tension or any sensation. And as you breathe out, let all of that go. And finally, we are at our face. I want you to notice any facial sensations. Are you frowning? Are you smiling? Or is your face totally relaxed? Our goal is to make it relaxed. And so as you breathe in and as you breathe out, let all of that tension leave your body. Let's bring our attention back to our breathing as we prepare to exit this exercise. Feel your stomach rise and fall with your breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes, sit up slowly if you were laying down. And that is the end.
Wonderful.
That was a very abbreviated version of what a full body scan, which is one of the ways that you can practice mindfulness, would feel like. And so that one really focuses on body sensations. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite because I'm someone who holds a lot of tension in my body. And I can feel it at all times. And so for me, the the release of that tension and returning back to like a very, like, I like to think of it as like soft, like my muscles are soft and, they're not like this all the time, is really helpful.
But even that express practice of mindfulness, I'm just sort of thinking about how I'm feeling right now. And there really is a very deep sense of relaxation and readiness, both of those in one moment. I'm relaxed and ready for the next thing. And I often find that actually doing a very short practice, just like you've described, in between tasks. So when switching from one thing to another, or I've just finished on a Zoom call, or I've just finished with a consultation, or I'm moving on to the next thing for the day, it's a really great pause to almost note that one thing has ended, and before the next thing starts, this is my sort of reset mode. And that just took a couple of minutes. So how fantastic to be able to slot that into your day multiple times.
Yes. And I totally agree. Like using this, I mean, even if you just need like 30 seconds to a minute, just kind of sit there and think like, okay, where is my body in relation to the space? What am I thinking about? Let's bring the focus back to the present moment. For me, like getting outside, just walking out on my porch for a minute helps me reset. And I can't stress the importance of like filling those time gaps with relaxation instead of thinking, oh, well, I have 2 minutes. I'm going to go do a little chore, like wipe down the table or put the dishes away or something like that. Because yes, that can be relaxing for some people, but that truly isn't a relaxation technique or the reset that we might really need to help us get through the day. Because sometimes we have that sense of urgency when we're doing that, because, if we don't get it done, then it's half done and we need to come back to it later. Whereas if we're just filling those time gaps with something where there is no time component, you give it the time that you have, and then you accept, I only had a minute and a half, totally fine. I'm going to get back to what I'm doing, and I'll come and revisit mindfulness in 2 hours or whatever. There is no urgency there, just relaxation.
And now, here is your lifestyle first prescription. Your 3 activating actions to take you from knowing to doing.
You've got 3 specific actions that listeners can take today.
Yes. So the first one is to be aware of your thoughts that are flowing in and out of your mind. River and the leaf analogy, and really allow your thoughts to just flow through your mind whenever you're being mindful. So I should have prefaced this with, these are all kind of 3 action steps that you should take whenever you want to engage in a mindfulness practice. And so, letting those thoughts flow through your head is the first step. The second actionable step that I would say is to acknowledge those thoughts, validate them. Those are real. Your mind really wants to go there and think about those things, but don't judge yourself for having those thoughts. Don't judge those thoughts themselves. Just accept them and let them flow through you. Don't dwell on them. That's like a lot of people, especially people who tend to feel more anxious or stressed than others, like to ruminate on those thoughts. And then the last one is to just be aware of your body in the moment, and really, really appreciate where you are and what your body is feeling. Because if your body wasn't feeling anything, that's not good, right? We get one chance on the bodies that we have, and so appreciating them, and saying like, I appreciate you for letting me know that like my bottom is really hurting in my chair right now, or like I really need to stand up and stretch out my back. Is probably the third step I would suggest. Yeah.
Thank you for those 3 core components of mindfulness. It's reminding me of what Jon Kabat-Zinn says, and you'll know him. He's a real master of mindfulness, and I'm sure you read his book, For Catastrophe Living. But in the first chapter in that, what he says is that you only have moments to live. And yet so much of the time we're out of touch with the richness of all these moments, but it's actually our awareness in this moment that shapes the next moment. And I guess really what is life if not a series of moments? And we have our mind and we have our body as our tools to be able to live in those moments. Thank you so much for sharing these moments with us all today, Jessica. Really appreciate.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting for me to kind of venture back into, this mindfulness kind of researcher component, right? Because in the classroom, I just tell my students, let's try this. And they almost always just love it. And so it doesn't take a lot of convincing or a lot of talking about, because for them, they just want the stress relief and the anxiety relief benefits. And so kind of being able to put back on like my researcher hat and my presenter hat has been very exciting for me. So I really appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. And I'm sure there'll be people who want to find out more about what you do and how you do it. So what's the best way to reach out to you, Jessica?
Yes. So I believe I had given out my Twitter handle to you, Dr. Patel. And so, individuals are more than welcome to reach out to me on Twitter. I don't tweet a lot, but I'm pretty active there, in the academic practitioner Twitter world. But I also, I guess that's probably the best way to reach out to me, because my inboxes are open. And then if there's some people request some like research or like directions, like YouTube videos or apps, to kind of get more information or to help find some guidance as they practice mindfulness, they can always send me a DM there and I can, point them in the right direction. My email inbox does tend to get pretty full now that I'm in graduate school. And so I don't want to lose any communication in there amongst my like school responsibilities. So Twitter is probably the best way to reach out to me.
Wonderful. I will certainly share all of your links, and including the link to your TEDx talk, which I'll put in the description. Would encourage everybody to watch and enjoy. So that really brings this week's episode to a close now, which really simply leaves me to wish everyone listening a happy, healthy day.
Thanks for joining us on the Lifestyle First podcast, making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and we'd love it if you'd be kind enough to leave a review. To learn more or to arrange a consultation, please visit www.dralkapatel.com. See you next time.